a bombshell report from the Justice Department that revealed the FBI had at least 26 confidential informants on the ground when the Capitol was stormed on January 6, 2021. The report says most of the informants engaged in illegal activity during the chaos. The Justice Department says only 3 of its 26 informants present had been instructed to observe potential domestic terrorist suspects on the day of the riot. The rest of the 23 appeared to have gone to the Capitol on their own accord. Upon hearing news of the report, Vice President-elect J.D. Vance posted the following on X, quote, "For those keeping score at home, this was labeled a dangerous conspiracy theory months ago."
That's right.
End quote. Didn't hear anything about that for the election. Didn't hear anything about that when the quote-unquote insurrection was broached by Vice President Kamala Harris as the Democratic nominee. The belief that Donald Trump was a danger to democracy and using this as a profound, illuminating bullet point to make that case. And now here we are yet again finding even more evidence to Donald Trump's claims when he articulated that process is rigged. My big issue is that I'm really, really sick and tired of every time I turn around finding something else that the Democrats have lied about or downplayed or misrepresented along the way. I mean, I see Republicans like Megyn Kelly or Officer Tatum or Candace Owens or, the Sean Hannitys of the world. You know what I'm getting tired of?
Tell me. What are you getting tired of, bro?
You know what I'm getting to the Democratic Party? You know what I'm getting really pissed off about? I'm getting really ticked off. And every time they open their mouth about something pertaining to y'all, they seem right to make the case that the right had a monopoly on insidious, evil tendencies, corrupt tendencies, duplicitous, hypocritical, untruthful tendencies. And every time they made those accusations, we turn around and find out that at least some of them are guilty of the same shit.
The Inspector General of the United States, or of the, I guess he's with the Injustice Department, hath released here, I'll just read you the title. Here's what they sent out. DOJ, that's the Department, it should be DOIJ, Department of Injustice, releases report on the FBI's handling of its confidential human sources and intelligence collection efforts in the lead-up to the January 6, 2021 electoral certification. Department of Injustice Inspector General Michael Horowitz today announced the release of a review examining the FBI's handling of its confidential human sources and intelligence collection efforts in the lead up to the events on 010621. Here's a surprise, not a surprise, Sergeant Carty. No, it's not a surprise. You and I knew this. We've known it forever. Since January of 2021. The FBI had informants, moles, actionable assets, exactly as they implored these stooges to try and supposedly assassinate the governor of Michigan, Gretchen Dimwitmer. The FBI had implanted and had embedded confidential human sources, CHSs, inside various groups, I suspect Proud Boys and some others, in an effort to promote the storming of the bicycle rack perimeter around the Capitol building. And that's what it was. And of course, you all know what happened after that. What is stunning or just shocking about this? Every member of Congress that's a Democrat that's ever been asked about this has denied it. Christopher Wray, the director of the FBI, denied it. The assistant director of the FBI denied it. Liz Cheney denied it. People that actually saw reports and knew that there were assets, denied it. They lied. Biden denied it, lied. Corinna Jean-Pierre, Blackety Ann, denied it, lied. The Shape, denied it, lied. Not only did they deny it, they freaking campaigned on it. They campaigned for the presidency of the United States. They ran for offices of Congress. They ran for the U.S. Senate. All the while knowing what you and I have known about this from day one is true. There's an article in the U.S. Constitution, if that matters to people. It's Article 3, Section 3. It deals with treason. What does Article 3, Section 3 say? And I think it's actually applicable here. And I'd like to hear President Trump actually say something about this. Treason against the United States shall consist only in levying war against them. Okay, so you have to read this clause correctly. Treason against the United States. Okay, what's the, all of you English majors out there, what's the subject? United States. Are there one or more than one? There's more than one, plural. Okay. Shall consist only in levying war against them. Okay, so then who is the them? The them are the aforementioned states. Or in adhering to their enemies. Biden's definitely guilty of this one. So is Harris. So is the rest of their administration. Giving them aid and comfort. Were aid and comfort given to the prisoners who were evacuated from jails in Nicaragua, in El Salvador, in Venezuela, in Chile, in Mauritania, that little country in Africa, and from the Sudan and Libya and all the countries around the world? Yes. Were they brought to the United States to levy war against us? Yes. This is an Article 3, Section 3 definition of treason. Now, I'm only talking about the immigrants. I'm not even talking about using agents of the government to basically set up, and that's what happened here. Members of the public who thought they were going to Mordor on the Potomac River as patriots. They were going to rally for the president, for the man that they had voted for, to remain, to serve his second term as commander-in-chief of the armed forces of the United States and all the other powers that go along with the presidency. That's why they went to Mordor and the Potomac River on 01-06-21. You will remember on 07-06 or 07-01-21 and on 08-01-21, we had interviews. We had people that called that were listeners of this show that were there. We had two people that called and had gone there with their families, and again, they had brought their children with them. Pretty much, teenage to adult young people had brought their children with them and thought that they were were doing something patriotic. They thought that they were doing something USA. And that's all they thought that they thought that they were doing. They didn't go there to overthrow the freaking government. They didn't go over there to start an insurrection or any of the other things they were accused of. And accused of them they were. This is no laughing matter here. The Federal Bureau of Investigation arrested many of these people. Hundreds upon hundreds of them were thrown in jail. Hundreds upon hundreds of them have copped guilty pleas for things they did not do. Lives have been ruined. Families have been broken up. Suicides have occurred. And now we know that we have a government and we have a government agency that participated in this setup here. No quarter to anyone. President Trump, when he takes the oath of office, Attorney General Bondi, if Kash Patel is confirmed as Secretary of the FBI, first thing that ought to happen is, all right, we're going to have a moratorium. Hiring freezes across the board. Don't even talk to anyone. We don't even know if you're going to survive, so don't talk to anyone. The second thing that ought to happen, go to this IG report. The third thing that ought to happen, Trump should to tell the people who are on him, I want a list of proper nouns. I want names. I want to know who signed off on what, and I don't care what it was. Don't feed me this malarkey that this is just some sort of, they were just carrying out their job. She didn't mean to do this. He didn't know he was a part of this. She didn't know. Yeah, they did. Bull. Yeah, they did. They absolutely knew they were a part of it. What about the times that you and I have had testimony? We played testimony from congressional committees right here on the Mike Church Show, where we have played, for example, Marjorie Taylor Greene or whoever, James Comer, asking questions of these FBI people and asking about the confidential human sources. And then we're lied to their face. This is perjury. Perjury has also been committed. Which is why, people that are just, the report came out, so we knew this. That's no big deal. Oh, no, it is a big deal. It absolutely is a big deal. We do not have, the founding fathers did not get together, have a revolution, then write a constitution, and then ratify it, and then begin the government of the United States so that it could surveil and wage war against its own citizens. I must have missed that part of the convention in Philadelphia in 1787, when Patrick Henry was was yelling, "Give me liberty or give me death." There's a line in that speech where Henry says, "Are armies and fleets and supplies necessary to a work of love and reconciliation?" People who were in that room that day were going like, "Mr. Henry, you need to change. You need to sit down. Right? We need to keep the king and the parliament. They're not against it. They're not waging war against us. They're our friends. They're our buddies. He's our king. It's our parliament, etc., etc., etc." And that's when Henry said, "Well, if he's our buddy, why is he sending a fleet of 10,000 Hessian mercenaries this way? Why he's negotiating with King Frederick of Prussia," and that's who he was. Why was George ringing up King Frederick of Prussia going, of course they didn't have phones back then, sending letters going like, "Oh, hello, Frederick, it's George the Third of the Merry Old England. How are you, old chap? Hey, listen, I understand that you have one of the most advanced and accomplished mercenary armies on the face of the planet. Well, His Majesty may wish to employ them in the New World against a rabble in arms that is occurring over there, if you're interested. Of course, we'll be happy to pay for their services, of course." The point being that we have a little history about it. We were kind of pissed off about that. And we didn't like the Hessians. The Hessians were not liked. They were not welcomed here, and many of them were captured. Many of them were killed. Remember the infamous Battle of Trenton on December the 26th, 1776, in which the Continental Army soldiers celebrated and had a giant party because they caught this guy who was basically an FBI agent, Kneifhausen. They caught Wilhelm Kneifhausen, and what had Kneifhausen done? Kneifhausen had become famous for capturing militiamen and torturing them, finding out where they lived, going to their houses, raping, robbing, and pillaging, and taking everything therein, and then killing the militia member who ultimately was interrogated. My point is, we established a government to bring that stuff to an end. And now here we go, we find out the FBI took significant and appropriate steps in advance of January the 6th to prepare for its supporting role. What do you mean to prepare for its supporting role? Well, folks, I tell you, payback is coming, and it should come. All right, Mike Church Show here on the Crusade Radio Network, welcoming all of you listening and watching out there anywhere across the amber waves of the MAGA. You know what? Something has changed in markets. Maybe it is a revolution. I don't like to use the word revolution because it usually has bad connotations and bad things come out of it. The MAGA, we'll just stick with movement for the time being. All right, we'll talk about this during the course of the program as we get underway here for the next 3 hours.
Talking about the decision of FBI Director Christopher Wray to announce his resignation 3 years before the end of his term. Do you think that was the right decision, Senator?
Well, I'm a little bit nervous about it. You know, when Trump talks about sending to jail people who are on that January 6th committee, that sounds like being a tin pot dictator. So I would hope that we have an FBI and a Justice Department that protects the civil liberties of the American people and does its best to protect American democracy.
That sounds like a tin pot dictator. We need the FBI to... I didn't know that the FBI was in charge of protecting my civil liberties. I must have missed that. I must have missed out on that. It's a new amendment. Yeah. Oh, Maggie says that's a new amendment. No, it's not a new amendment. It's an old stupid idea. You know, we need to talk about this. Look, there's a picture right there. Daniel Penny with J.D. Vance and President Trump. And the sweep. By the way, congratulations to Navy. Navy beat the crap out of 11-1 Army. And it wasn't, I mean, the Army came in heavily favored, having one of its best seasons in decades. But Navy, the Naval Academy, the middies just took it to them, man. It wasn't even close. As a matter of fact, it was kind of a blowout. By the end of the game, it was basically a blowout. So, congratulations to the middies, to the midshipmen for beating Army on America's Game Saturday. All right, we're just going to go down the pecking orders here of digital media files. But talking about the FBI, just quickly, another point on this. The FBI is supposed to be investigating internal crimes or crimes that are committed inside the federal government. Read its charter. Look, don't take my word for it. Maggie, you can find the charter. Read the act that created the FBI in 1905 or 1910 or whenever it was. Read the charter. Why was it created? It was created because there were these federal entities, these agencies, and there were people that were basically committing crimes who were working for the federal government of the United States. And so, that would have been Teddy Roosevelt. I think it was Roosevelt. That created it came up with the idea. Well, let's have this thing called the FBI, and the FBI, and this bureau will investigate basically crimes that are going on inside of the federal government, inside the executive branch, basically. And that's what it was. It was never intended to be a crime-fighting unit. It wasn't until the stupid the prohibition came along, and the mobsters. The Al Caponesters were running basically the city governments, and were like, prohibition? What prohibition? Yeah, no. And they were running basically outside of the prohibition law because people didn't stop drinking. No one stopped drinking. It just made it more difficult to get. So, you know, the famously Elliot Ness and the Untouchables, and they went after Al Capone and all the gangsters and all that. Again, these were abuses. This is FDR then expanding federal power and empowering an agency like the FBI to do things that it was never intended to do. If President Trump wants the FBI to actually do what it was created to do, then you'll fire 90% of the people that work there. You'll kill the stinking training academy in Quantico. And you will only have elite military special operatives that want to go from the military into the FBI for specific law enforcement purposes, and those law enforcement purposes are aimed at people that work for the federal government. End of story. The FBI doesn't do anything else. You know, you have to enlist, folks, this is how they do it. The brainwashing and the propagandizing. Do you know that CBS TV now has an entire night that is FBI night? True story. I saw the ad for it during the Army-Navy game that was called by Brad Nessler and Gary Danielson Saturday on CBS, where they refused to show President Trump. New on CBS, FBI night. Begin with FBI, the trainees, followed by FBI. You know, they ought to have one called FBI. The informants. Tuesday night is FBI night. How does this happen? The American public, by and large, can't stand, is terrified of the FBI, doesn't like the FBI, has questions about whether the FBI should even freaking exist. And yet CBS this is what they do. They have to engage and they have to enlist broadcast media in order to sell the lie that the FBI is some pie-in-the-sky, pious agency that is to protect the civil liberties of the American people. Bullcrap. That was never its intention. It was never intended to do that. Now they have FBI night on CBS. Why don't they just advertise it for what it is? We don't trust and hate MAGA night. The American people are guilty, and the FBI is here to stick it to them. And the FBI is here to get to the bottom of the American people. Now here it is. The FBI on J6 by Maker S. Mark. By the by, I'm just going to say this in passing. Candace Owens did a video interview with a gentleman that was on the USS Liberty. You can find it on the Catholicism.org website. Brother Andre and Marie posted it. It's in the Signal. It's in some of the Signal groups. Guy's last name is Tourney. Tourney. He was actually on the USS Liberty. I reached out after I watched Candace Owens' interview. I reached out to Mr. Tourney, and I received a response from his son. And yeah, I will get the interview. They are very excited about it. So in any event, if you know the story of the USS Liberty, I have questions that Candace Owens didn't ask Mr. Tourney, and I'm going, okay. Now let me probe a little deeper into this. The IDF shooting down or shooting up of the USS Liberty. Okay, why did they do it? Because I'd like to get into the whys. Like Mitter Mundy says, why things work. The Office of Inspector General for the FBI issued a report last week that detailed at least 26 FBI confidential human sources were present at the Capitol on January 6, 2021. 26 embeds. What were they doing? Were any of the embeds, there you go, remain calm, all is well, stop the attack? Did any of the embeds try and stop any of the other patriots gathered there on 010621 from breaching the bicycle rack barrier and then breaching the inside of the Capitol building? No, they didn't. They instead did what? Led the charge. That screams illegality to me. That is, what do they call it in legal circle? Entrapment. That screams entrapment. So they were trying to make criminals out of the American people that were there to patriotically cheer their then president on and the man that they voted for, and they thought got a raw deal and had an election stolen from him. So the FBI was there to do what? Wage war on the general government of the United States and make it look like certain of the American people were actually the ones responsible for it, and then tie that to President Trump. And they would have gotten away with it if it hadn't been for those meddling kids. Again, Mr. President, you are misunderstood, and someone in your transition team should explain to you why the FBI was created. When did you find out? What year was it created? No, I saw you searching for it. And what was the purpose it was created for? It was not to do what it is currently doing, and it needs to be dismantled. I was close. I said 1906, 1908. So what was the purpose it was created for? It was created to investigate crimes inside the federal government. It was not. It was never to be. Again, James Madison made this clear while he was still alive, dozens and dozens of times. Law enforcement power is a municipal, MUNICIPA, is a municipal power that belongs exclusively and explicitly to the people or to the states. The federal government is not a municipality. It does not have law enforcement powers, only inside its own entity. And then for the few crimes that are mentioned in the Constitution, like treason. If you look at the report, Maker's Mark says, you'll see in the methodology who was not interviewed. The OIG could not interview anyone that was not currently employed by the FBI. For example, the report details at least David Bowditch, Jeff Sallet, John Brown, Terry Wade, and Stephen Laycock all declined to be interviewed. A footnote reads, one former FBI TFO declined our interview request. In another telling statement, the OIG acknowledges an inability to subpoena or compel testimony from former department employees and third-party witnesses. In other words, the OIG only spoke to people who are with the FBI and who cooperated. The office did not speak to any of the third parties or former FBI employees, nor did it speak to anyone outside the FBI that might have been working with the FBI at the time. In short, the OIG spoke to a limited number of cooperating FBI agents. In other words, they didn't really speak to anyone. Not people that had a role, certainly not people that had a role in planning. Who planned this? This, to me, this comes down to the simple question, who was at a meeting and said, this is a good idea, here's what we ought to do. We ought to set these MAGA bastards up. We ought to embed human intelligence with them. We ought to sucker bait them into storming the Capitol, and then we're going to blame the whole thing on Trump. Somebody concocted that plan. Who was it? Now, the usual suspects, cynics in the Crusader Stadium chat room are going to go, well, now we find out TKD, succeed. And you may be right. Secession won't fix this. You'll just leave an agency then that will have weapons and power to come after you in your state that just left the Union. Unless, of course, California leaves first. Then we can really have a new union. Oh, please do it. Gavin, do it, Gavin. Be a hero. Be president of the California Republic. Do it. Do it, I'm here. Please. Hateful Hockle, Satan's apostle, do it. Do it, leave. Leave. Vermont, leave. Please. Illinois, please. Leave. Trump is insufferable. We will not suffer. Good. No, don't suffer him. He's terrible. Look, we all agree. Leave. You're going to be so much better off.